Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Now, I mentioned a couple of days ago in one of the roundups about a patient that had to wait 8 years for mental health treatment. And he's not alone. I mean, he's an outlier for the 8 years, but many are hitting 5 and 6 years. And you have to wonder how many of them aren't lasting long enough in order to even get to the point where they're getting their mental health issues treated. We all know that mental health is as important as physical health. It is such a debilitating thing because it affects not just what you're doing, but it affects your entire output, your entire outlook. It affects the people of your family. It's utterly awful. It leads to an absolutely miserable existence, and of course, ultimately, it can even lead to death by one means or another. So it is something that should be addressed. It is an issue. It is an important health issue. Important to the people, important to the families, important to people suffering from it. But not, it seems, important to the SNP, for whom they have other fish to fry, mainly independents. But we'll take a look at this. We'll see what they've done wrong and see how this has come about. And it is truly awful. And I do feel sorry for those individuals concerned. Here goes. Right, before we get into it, I would ask that you double check that you're still subscribed. Again and again, this keeps happening. I'm getting notifications of people saying that they've been unsubscribed by YouTube. So just do please check you are still subscribed and have the bell rung. Thank you very much. And if you're yet to subscribe, please do so. We're about to start the new year. It would be nice to start with as loud a voice as possible. And knowing that the algorithm pushes us down because YouTube don't really like political channels. So when you subscribe, it massively helps the channel and helps us get the truth out. Anyway, we'll have a look at this story here. SNP contempt as the NHS leaves mental health patient waiting 8 years for treatment. And the NHS say the incident is an outlier, but the Lib Dems say they do not understand the SNP's budget cuts in light of stories of torment. Now, we've mentioned the budget cut in previous videos. They've cut £30 million just from the mental health budget alone. 30 million. Now, how many people will that help? Untold numbers. Literally change the lives of people. And they've cut the budget by £30 million. Meanwhile, they've ring-fenced £35 million to maintain their little foreign embassies, which are pretendy embassies, they're not real embassies. But people are suffering like this. And this particular person, 8 years. A patient has waited more than 8 years for mental health therapy, while others from 10 other Scottish health boards have not even started treatment in more than a year. The SNP government has come under fire for showing contempt for all of those who are struggling, following a recent reckless move to cut funding to mental health services in the recent budget. While NHS Highland spokesman said the 8-year case in their region is an outlier. And I'm sure it is an outlier, but it's not an outlier by much. And you'll see from other numbers that we're going to look at here. The individual's experience was revealed by the Scottish Liberal Democrats, who sourced data showing patients in NHS Highland, Lothian and Tayside who are currently waiting more than 1,000 days for psychological therapies, with the longest wait in the Highland Health Board reaching 3,018 days, which is that 8 years. Now, I happen to know, only because of other things, and I've done a bit of research on it, that this guy lives in Golspie. Now, I'm sure as many know, but for those who don't, Golspie is right up there. I mean, it's way north of Inverness. It's on the coast. It's on the A9. It's a tiny little place, and you're a long way from any sort of major. I suppose the next major one would be Inverness itself, but it's a hell of a trek down if you're not mentally well. It's a long journey to make, and so there are no facilities, I suspect, or very few and far between, certainly. And so, yeah, you can understand why there may be some delay, perhaps a little. But 8 years is just a joke, isn't it? Only it's not funny for him. Lib Dem leader Alex Cole Hamilton said, "I do not understand how nationalist ministers can hear stories of people in mental torment and respond with budget cuts in inaction." Well, I can understand why. It's quite simple. These people are sociopaths. They have no feeling, no empathy, no sympathy. They have no humanity. They cannot relate to real, normal people because they themselves are not real, normal people. There is something in them that is broken, that is missing. And so they cannot understand what people go through, the troubles people go through, most of which have been caused by 17 years of SNP rule, it must be said. Anyway, in Tayside, a patient has waited 1,024 days, almost 3 years, for the treatment, which can include cognitive behavioural therapy, which actually CBT can actually work wonders. My sister, I'm not going to name names or do anything, but my sister had a fear, and she went and got sorted out, and it massively changed her. I'm not going to give you what the fear was. It was just a phobia, but it was just there, and she got cured. So these things happen. I've known other people with severe problems that CBT has actually helped. But again, it's one of those things, it's a one-on-one, it's a reaction, it's a series of steps you take from, very loose to, I can't do it. It's like the 12-step plan for alcoholics, but it's whatever your fear is kind of thing. It's like that, but it's intense, but it works. And it's fantastic, and it changes people's lives, literally overnight. Well, not literally overnight, but over the course of weeks. Over the course of a few weeks, it can make such a massive difference. And yet they want to cut this. They want people to wait. It's cruel. It is literally cruel. It's a crime against humanity. In NHS Lothian, a patient has waited between 265 and 280 weeks, which is around 5 years. NHS Tayside's longest wait is 5.5 years. So this outlier of 8 years, as you say, it's an outlier, but it's not much of an outlier when you're talking these kind of things. Just 3 health boards, Borders, Lanarkshire and Orkney, have waits under 1 year, with a 72-day wait, the longest experienced in the latter. So if you're going to go a bit bonkers or going to have mental issues, move to the Orkneys. NHS Forth Valley did not provide figures, probably quite embarrassed by them. Being the capital and all. Meanwhile, the figures also show 220 people waited more than 2 years to start psychological therapy in NHS Lothian, while 69 in the Highlands are still waiting more than 2 years later. These shouldn't be waiting this long. Yes, I get there's some wait, limited spaces, but not that long, and certainly not 8 years, not 5 years, not 2 years. Weeks, okay, months, if it's a few. Beyond that, no, this is people's lives in the end. There's people that will end themselves over issues like this. And this nationalist government doesn't care. Filled, like I say, with sociopaths and psychopaths. Filled with people who literally don't care. All they care about is independence. And this is what happens. Cole Hamilton added, if people are put on hold for years on end, their mental state will simply deteriorate, often past the point of no return. The SNP government is showing contempt for all those struggling. Last winter, they cut a staggering 50 million, a reckless move that was swiftly followed by Alibaba breaking his personal commitment to clear waiting lists by the spring. Now they're cutting a further 30 million. In recent years, Scottish Lib Dems have led the Parliament in declaring a mental health crisis against the wishes of the government, because the government don't want to admit that they've got hiccups. But the government don't want to admit, the SNP government don't want to admit that they have caused a mental health crisis. Because it is down to them. You're pulling 80 million of funding in 2 years. How bad do you think this situation is going to get? And how much worse can it possibly get? This isn't the end of it, and it's probably not the last of the cuts. And it's just unbelievably bad for those people involved. And it is going to get worse. And it's all the fault absolutely all the fault of the SNP. There's no two ways about it. They're the ones cutting these budgets. This isn't Westminster. I'm coming up. To allow people to suffer like that when you know you can do something about it is truly awful, I think. And it is a crime against humanity to spend money on glossy brochures rather than easing the mental burdens of people. Often people who have been put into these positions by your own policies. It goes to show the unthinking, uncaring evil, I suppose, of the SNP. They drive people to mental illness and then cut the funding for any kind of therapy. Get what you pay for, don't you? Anyway, I shall stop there. Thank you very much for watching. And that's a difficult subject, but I'm sure we all know people who've had depression, who've had issues, who've had all kinds of breakdowns even, you know, and who need professional help. Unfortunately, in today's Scotland, it's unlikely they're ever going to receive it. Difficult subject. There you go. Anyway, till next time, stay safe, stay well, and I will speak to you later. Thank you.